This is kind of a different shot of the property, and I actually went up in the world's smallest airplane. It was not too much bigger than a mosquito, and I'm flying around with a pilot. They're like literally shoulder to shoulder, and I'm holding on for dear life with one arm and trying to take pictures with the other hand. And so anyway, that was a lot of fun. So here's the pipeline again. You can actually see this is right at it. Here's the horses right here. This is the barn. This is kind of a smaller barn. This is where our water well is, and then here's our home. And right there is where the wellhead is. And then you see this attractive stuff right here? So how big that is? That's the waste pit. And this is kind of after what's left of it. This is all fluid there. This is all very wet, saturated here. This pit would sit here unattended and for over 6 months before they were forced by the EPA to remove it. The reason that the EPA forced them to remove it is because not so much as that the EPA has jurisdiction over waste pits, they do have jurisdiction over U.S. waters. And where does this stuff run to? It eventually makes its way to U.S. waters. So the EPA made them completely remove the pit, and they filled it all in with topsoil. And when it was like this, we started seeing bubbles coming up. Now, they had been pushing some dirt and stuff into it off and on over that couple-week period of time. So, you know, for the first week, maybe 2 weeks, I thought maybe this was just part of that mud settling or whatever. But months later, now the pit is completely gone. That plastic liner is out of there, all that fluid is out of there, all that mud is out of there, it's just dirt. And then it rains. And now what do I say? Bubbles. So I called the Railroad Commission, which is who governs the sites. The guy came out, the inspector came out. He filled out his report, got the report about 2 weeks later. So reports always take about 2 weeks. We got the reports back. The report said he didn't even see any bubbles. So I called him again. And I said, now we've got these pockets, and there's this bright red fluid stuff running out of the same pockets that these gas bubbles are coming up out of. Now, I mean, it's not percolating, but I mean, obviously they come up in little streams of bubbles, kind of intermittently. Second time that he comes out, I saw him walking around the property, so I go out and I said, so what did you think? And he said, I still don't see the bubbles. Okay, the photographer from the county newspaper has like 16,000 pictures of the bubbles. The photographer from the other county newspaper, he's got a gajillion pictures of it. Everybody that drives by and has been over here, we're talking about dozens of people, everybody's seen the bubbles except you, and you're the guy that inspects well sites for a living. Oh, that's right, you actually have to get out of your truck and walk over here. And then he looked at it and he goes, yeah, those are bubbles. Okay, what is causing those bubbles? The Railroad Commission only does a few things. They want to do a lot. They'll tell you that they want to do a lot, but they also tell you is that they can only really do this much. So when you ask them to test things, they don't really test for anything except for chlorides, which is salt, right? Well, with the bubbles and this red fluid stuff, I don't really care how much chloride is in that water. I want to know what that red fluid stuff is, and I want to know what's causing the bubbles. So we get a report back that says that it was 650 parts per billion of chlorides. I'm going to scream. So I sent another email, this time to the district office. I want to know what is causing the red fluid stuff. And oh, by the way, since we've been playing around with this, when you take a fireplace lighter out to the bubbles ignite. They send the inspector back out and he looks at it. Their report was that it was a natural occurrence and just part of the settling process. Well, your settling catches on fire. We're tore through this fence. This is our fence. Paid $15,000 for this fence. Runs the full length of the road and the property. Right about here is where they cut it off and installed this rusty gate on there for it. So the wellheads are there now, where the drilling rig is, and then down here, where the other side of the fence is, our fence is doing a great job of protecting their piping and their condensate tanks. It's doing a really good job for that. When I asked them, after they showed up, we got no notice that they were coming. My wife and I actually waited for us to leave for work and school before they tore that section of fence out, and to get a work crew in there. And when I stopped them, when I showed up and I asked him, I said, "Why didn't you call us and tell us, or why didn't you tell us that you were going to do this?" And he said, "There wasn't any time." I said, "Let me get this straight. You had time to get together a crew of 30 workmen, 6 bulldozers, a fencing company, welders, and all this equipment, but you didn't have time to call me?" Want to try this again, Mr. Mayor?
Do surface owners get any kind of compensation since you're a split estate?
Did we get any kind of compensation?
No, I'm saying do surface owners there get any kind of compensation?
Yes, you get compensation. If you get it's not a negotiated amount. It's whatever the lease calls for, which in our case is, let me clarify that. There is, not in my case, but Texas state law says that they have to pay a minimum of $1,500 per site. So in our case, they would have normally given us $3,000. But again, because they want to be our good neighbors, they actually gave us $30,000 or $15,000 per site. And it might certainly sound like $30,000 is a lot of money. Is that ready? Yeah. $30,000 might seem like a lot of money. But when they do over $200,000 worth of damage,
So they don't have to return your site to what it, I mean, they don't have to replace your $15,000 fence, they don't have to recover with decent topsoil and seed it, and that's because the state of Texas owns all the mineral rights, is that it?
No, that decision is entirely up to, it's whatever is in the lease and the generosity. It's up to the leaseholder, which is not me, and it's up to the generosity of the company. Now you got to understand, since we've been giving them such a hard time being outspoken, they're not really going to do anything for me that they absolutely have to or are made to do.
Who is your leaseholder?
The name of the individual or the name of the company?
Or company?
It's an individual that owns the lease.
Suppose your property had been leased for coal production, and that lease was for $99 and 99 years, and then all of a sudden, a foreign company buys that lease from that company that is defunct. How do you go back and prove that?
Good question. Yeah, we see a lot of that, where the company makes you a promise that they're going to maintain this or they're going to take care of this, but once they sell it to another company, then it's like whatever deal that you have with the prior company doesn't carry through.
Well, how can that be legal? How can it be legal that a foreign company has more right
as someone that believes very strongly in the United States Constitution, I'm still trying to get my mind around how a private company can in and take as much property as they believe is reasonable. Now, I'm sure if we went and took a poll and asked people in here, your idea reasonable, we probably have 150 different definitions of that.
Well, that's true, but just as you said, more property, if I'm putting $100,000 to $200,000 into my home, and out of the blue, somebody comes and says, sorry, you don't have any rights. We own everything that's under your feet, and it's going to come and put these things in my backyard. Yes, they can. So who gave them that right? What politician gave them that right?
In that first video that we saw that I showed you with that night video, the emissions, we saw where the emissions were not only they're extremely high. The Railroad Commission could only make a recommendation, and the recommendation was that Aruba should consider using nitrogen oxide controls, filter, if you will, on its diesel generator engines in situations where potentials for off-site impact are high. My house is an off-site impact. This rig is one of at least 2 sites installed just a few hundred feet right off of Denton Creek, and there is and I know that, have you seen any white foam floating around in the streams? We have that same stuff here too. And this site here is only, Denton Creek is just over here on the outside of the edge of this picture, and it flows this way. And again, I'd love to be able to show you this video. This is a video of the drilling mud blowout where they lost control of one of the valves, and there was hundreds and hundreds of gallons of drilling mud that leaked out all over the property. And of course, what they said was that there was a jet that was left unattended. The Texas Railroad Commission took no enforcement action against Aruba Petroleum because the spill was unintentional, and they cleaned most of it up within 24 hours. Well, I certainly hope it was unintentional. In my opinion, I think that the Railroad Commission, one of really the only agency that governs the gas and oil industry in Texas, is probably just as corrupt, if not more corrupt, than the mafia. And an example of that is in this response here. According to statewide Rule 8, the operator has to report immediately any accident, spill, or fire. And so we saw the report from the operator that described the event as to what it was that happened. And we also got the report back from the suit in Austin who made the decision not to take the enforcement action. The interesting thing about it was that the guy in Austin made his decision not to take any enforcement action 10 days before he got the report of what it was that happened. Isn't that kind of like the judge making a decision before we have the trial? But it was unintentional, remember? This is the view from the side of our house. There's like that stone barrier. It's only about 10 feet too short, about 30 yards too shy on one side there. And it's also a one-sided barrier. Our neighbors on the other side, to the right of that, have no sound protection whatsoever. And when I pointed out to this out to the supervisor, he simply said, "That's the best way we can do it." Gas well drilling is inherently dangerous because it's dangerous for the workers and it's dangerous for the people who have to live around it. This black cloud that you see here, that's coming out of just one of those generators, and that comes out about every 3 to 4 minutes. You can actually see when they're really in the drilling process, right about dawn when the sun's coming up, you can see the light diffusion. You can actually see this stream that just goes for miles. The county that I live in is Wise County. It is the second highest polluted county in the entire state with VOCs. There are between 40 and 60,000 people that live in the entire county. We have the second highest pollution count on VOCs. Tarrant County, which is home to Grapevine and Fort Worth, and DFW Airport is not number one. Denton County, which is the county that's immediately to the east of us, they have considerably much more larger population than Wise County does, but it's not like there's millions of people or even hundreds of thousands of people. And they have the highest, they are the highest polluted county in the state. Saw this picture a little earlier. This is, the industry refers to this white smoky stuff as sand. And it may have sand in it, but it also has silica, which is a small fiber. Asbestos comes to mind. They will keep in mind the operator does just the job. They inform you of nothing, and when you ask, you're often given a half-truth at best. It's just sand. Another operator complains to the railroad committee or the TCEQ saying fracking made so that you can go outside. The TCEQ took no action. I think we can actually, we've got this video here. This one actually played almost by itself. Get on me out here again, Kevin? Because I know we've got this one, and I think it's important for them to see this one. See all that gas? This is an infrared video. This is coming out of fittings. This is a leak. This shouldn't be coming out of there at all. You can't see it and you can't smell it. Oh, by the way, it also is a saleable product for what it's worth. So we really need gas. We need to release our dependence on foreign oil, but we're perfectly happy just to let this stuff leak off. If this was a gasoline station, would that be acceptable? Just, I'll only run it out a little bit. This is actually an intentional vent pipe that runs across the top of the tank there. You can see this plume that's running out of here. That runs like that 24 hours a day. Guess which direction that's going to? Our house. Remember what the limit was on benzene? It was 1.4. This particular test that the Texas Commission did, this test was 59 parts per billion. And that was just on one single small little test. So one window of time out of this,